Dubai. An extravagant city renowned for its ambitious vision. At the heart of a country steeped in tradition, the United Arab Emirates. Deep Dive Dubai is the deepest diving pool in the world, almost 200 feet deep, 3,700,000 gallons of water, the equivalent of 6 Olympic swimming pools, Dubai's largest underwater attraction.
Dubai is about dream.
A dazzling center of exploration where safety, excellence, and attention to detail are paramount.
This is a crazy project.
A submerged post-apocalyptic city. A unique diving experience and a grandiose setting with a multitude of soundscapes.
You only ever get an opportunity to work on something like this once in a lifetime, if you're lucky.
From the outside, it looks like a traditional swimming pool, but this shell-shaped structure in the heart of the desert is an extraordinary achievement.
An activity that's normally carried out at sea and carried out inland.
To make the dream a reality, to realize a feat of engineering that defies the laws of physics, the greatest scuba diving specialists from all over the world were called in. This gargantuan project mobilized hundreds of workers over a period of several years.
12 kilometers of underwater cable, 56 cameras, and 150 lights, and 700 workers, and coordinating all of that in such a place was a challenge.
Just as the Deep Dive Dubai teams thought they had successfully met the challenge, a change to the specifications stretched them even further, as the depth of the pool was increased by a further 40 feet from the initial 147.
There was a lot of open mouths. There was a lot of...
By reaching 196 feet, Deep Dive Dubai would exceed by 40 feet the record held by what was then the world's deepest pool, Deep Spot, a 147-foot deep diving pool located in Poland. At this new depth, Dubai would once again feature in the Guinness Book of World Records.
A facility like this can only be built in Dubai.
How many buildings are there like this in the world? Nothing as spectacular as this from an architectural point of view.
But how to dig down to such a depth and make certain that the structure is watertight in the long term? How to guarantee the safety of divers at such depths? How to ensure that the water is clean, warm, and clear on a daily basis?
Insane down there.
Let's take a dive behind the scenes at this XXL leisure venue.
Deep Dive Dubai is a crazy project, and it's actually an idea that is based on the fact that before oil was found in the region, pearl diving was the basis of the economy.
That's what they were doing in the early 1900s. The whole economy was based on pearl diving. So the heritage is important here.
The Emiratis, they like to engage in activities that are related to their past. They like to free dive because that reminds them of that history of being a free diving nation, or pearl diving nation. But free diving outside in the ocean here in the Gulf is not really great because it's murky, it's sandy. So they decided to build a facility for free divers.
Faithful to their traditions, the authorities at Dubai wanted to put diving center stage by building a structure dedicated to it. To that end, they approached the RTA, the department managing roads and transport, for an informed opinion on the construction of a diving pool. The RTA then turned to the experts at Halcro, a civil engineering firm, for advice. Glenn Monks was chosen for his extensive experience on construction sites, developing pipelines of the same magnitude in the United Arab Emirates.
Halcro were appointed to produce the design for the dive pool and tender documents and then manage the process. They came to Halcro originally because we were involved at a STEP project in Abu Dhabi. It's a large tunneling project.
STEP, or Strategic Tunnel Enhancement, a colossal project, a vast wastewater treatment system. This labyrinth of tunnels is buried several tens of meters into the ground beneath the city of Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, just 90 minutes from Dubai.
In Abu Dhabi, they have a deep sewer system, so the sewers are anything from 30 metres to around about 100 metres deep. And right at the end, before the treatment plant, there's a very deep pump station, 110 metres deep, I think it is. So obviously there were very significant technical challenges around designing that shaft for the pump station. Obviously RTA knew that Halcro were heavily involved in that, and they asked us to bid for this project. Very similar in terms of, you know, a large shaft, 40 metres deep, 10 metres diameter. So there was, you know, a lot of similarities in terms of the shaft construction, and I think that's why RTA were keen to get Halcro involved.
To mount their bid for what was then called the Pearl Diving Project, Halcro enlisted the services of Pascal & Watson, the architectural firm that worked on the Louvre Museum in Abu Dhabi, designed by the architect Jean Nouvel. Damien Fitzgerald, architect and partner at Pascal & Watson until 2019, has followed the site from its conception.
It was in late 2012, Pascal & Watson received a phone call from Halcro, initially to design a dive pool for 45 metres deep. We developed a relationship with Halcro, and we became their architect and lead design for interiors and what we see here today. At the inception of the project, we had an outline concept design, which we received from the client. It was very simple. It was a tank and a few changing rooms and toilets around it, and it had the outline of a pearl shell. We sat and discussed how to take an activity that's not normally carried out at sea and carry it out inland.
With a record of more than 4,500 dives in 35 countries, Jesper Kuller brought in some essential expertise. Now the senior marketing supervisor at Deep Dive Dubai, he also has a long experience in print media dedicated to the underwater world.
So having an indoor facility here gives us control over the environment. We can control the temperature. We're not dependent on weather. So that's why it's built as an indoor facility.
A controlled diving space which would no longer depend on the elements of nature. One which would allow diving all year round and, most importantly, in complete safety. The initial brief called for the pool to be buried in the ground, even though other alternatives would probably have been less complex.
You know, to excavate this building into the earth was much, much more challenging than building a skyscraper and filling it with water.
So why not build an exterior structure at ground level and pour 3,800,000 gallons of water into it? Apart from the inherent challenges in terms of the resistance of materials and water pressure, another factor specific to the region dispelled any doubts about which option was preferable.
Dubai is a very hot country. Most of the year we prefer to stay inside in air condition, even diving here in the summer, because I go dive quite a lot on the coasts as well. I like to dive in the ocean, but it's very hot.
The decision to dig this gigantic cylinder also allowed Dubai to boast the largest diving pool in the world. But the technical feasibility of such an ambition required careful analysis by the project teams.
This is a major civil engineering job. It really is. It's a big engineering project with a beautiful architectural finish on top, with the middle full of water. You know, that's what the facility is.
While the construction of the pool is above all a civil engineering project, the aesthetic aspect of the building was also an essential consideration. Each building in Dubai, even if it breaks height records, such as the 2,700-foot-high Burj Khalifa, is also an architectural creation that adds to the city's reputation. This particular construction could be no exception. To realize this ambition, the visionary and marine explorer Jared Jablonski was hired as a consultant for the project, eventually becoming the director of Deep Dive Dubai. This trained scientist has an impressive career punctuated with records, such as the longest cave dive in 2007.
Dubai is about dreams, and it's about building stuff regardless of whether it has a near-term cost benefit. It's more about, this is a vision of where we want to go, and we've tried to orchestrate the experience. It's something you can truly not do anywhere else in the world.
We retained the initial idea that the client proposed, which was the pearl itself. We kept that as our primary starting point and developed from there.
If you look at it from above, from space, you can actually see it from space. You will see that it looks like a seashell.
When you look at the building, there's no pipes or air conditioning units on the roof. It's a complete clean shell, and it sits just nicely tucked into the landscape. And around it, we have a body of water which replicates the top of the shell, as if the shell is open. The circulation around the pool for the arrivals, you know, they get to see everything before they get up onto the pool deck above. Then when they arrive onto the pool deck above, they're in the heart of the shell, in the heart of the pearl itself. So when you arrive in the middle, you've got a great big acrylic window, 15 meters wide, that opens up and you can see right into the pool. So it creates that whole wow factor when you arrive.
Dubai was never going to settle for a simple diving pit. The client expected bold and innovative proposals from the architectural firm. The challenge was to develop a unique concept that would get people talking about Deep Dive Dubai, not only for its world depth record, but also for its design.
During the course of the design stage, we had a series of various different options which were tabled to the client. We were encouraged to explore, propose, design, and deliver something special. We had a number of interior design proposals for the project, and then a decision was made to actually, let's go big on this. Let's do something special. The facility is special, so let's surround it with a special interior and fit out.
The man who was approached to make it all possible is a true explorer, with over 30 years of diving experience. Before being technical manager of Deep Dive Dubai, Richard Lundgren was part of a series of expeditions, including discoveries of shipwrecks.
The whole idea behind Deep Dive Dubai came from one person that had an idea to create a very deep training area for freediving. And that idea kind of grew into being a deep pool first, but then this person traveled the world and saw different underwater environments. He wanted to recreate these things in his pool. In the beginning, he wanted to have like a shipwreck experience, but that became kind of common because he wanted to see something that has never been seen.
We had 3 proposals, I recall. We had a space proposal, you know, the moon and planets and orbits and various different elements of that nature. We had an organic one, which was seaweed and, you know, marine life, animals, plants. The theme that was chosen was a sunken city. A little bit like Atlantis, but not quite Atlantis. Like a New York streetscape that just dropped. And then when you dive in, you see all sorts of normal day things, such as somebody's apartment, a fridge with a milk bottle inside, a library, cars, motorbikes, all sorts of different normal day things just to make that exciting, you know, exploration into, you know, a sunken world and create that excitement. And we were told, yalla, build, get on with it.
The sports complex of Nad El Sheba, 15 minutes from the center of Dubai and 25 minutes from the airport, was chosen as the site for the new diving center. The first stage of this ambitious project was to excavate a cavity for a concrete cylinder 65 feet in diameter and 147 feet deep. The idea for the 197-foot deep well had not yet been evoked.
Basically, you need to create like a big tunnel, but not horizontal, it needs to go vertical.
You start with an excavation of let's say, 5 meters deep. So the first 5 meters you just excavate from the surface, and then you build a guide wall around the circumference of the pool, around about 1 meter wide, and then they bring in what they call a hydro mill. So this is basically a large machine that excavates soil vertically. So it's got some large cutting heads on the bottom of the hydro mill, and you basically excavate a slot, let's say 2 meters wide by 1 meter deep, and all the way down. And so you do that in chunks all the way around until you fill the whole circumference, basically. So you excavate, put in bentonite to stabilize the excavation, because otherwise it could just collapse. You put in your reinforcement cage, and then you fill it up with concrete. So the weight of the concrete displaces the bentonite, and then you go around the circle until you completely have the circle. I think that took, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months to actually build the diaphragm wall. And then you put an excavator inside the circle and excavate all the way down to the bottom.
Once we dug down, it was incredible how hard the rock is beneath this particular facility. It is very, very hard rock. Everybody thinks it might be sand, but it's actually very, very hard rock.
Obviously, the first kind of maybe 10 meters or so was relatively easy, but the deeper you go down, the harder the rock becomes, and the more difficult it is to excavate. So the progress starts to slow down a little bit. To excavate down, that was another 3 to 6 months. It was quite a long time.
It wasn't just the presence of dense rock that posed significant challenges during this first stage. Hidden below the ground, complicating the task yet further, is another element, one not usually associated with the desert: water.
So it's quite interesting, really, when you think of the desert, you don't tend to think of the influence of water. But we are quite close to the coast, so we hit the groundwater table at right around 8 meters. So really, almost immediately, you have to deal with groundwater influx, intrusion into the construction site. That requires a number of groundwater pumps be set up throughout the site to lower the groundwater table and allow you to construct in the relative dry.
You need to lower the water level, the groundwater level, all the way around. The diaphragm wall is not waterproof, yeah? So if you didn't lower the water table, you'd get water coming into the excavation and it would be very difficult to handle. So we lowered the water table all the way down to around about the base of the pool so that it would be dry as we excavate all the way down. One of the challenges at the end of the day when we'd excavated to the bottom was to make sure that when you release, when you turn off the dewatering system, that the walls aren't leaking. There are joints between these panels, and you have to make sure that are sealed and fully waterproof.
Obviously, the pole needs to be watertight, so water can't leak out from the pole and water can't leak into the pole. If that seal would leak, you can lose water from the pole that goes out into the surrounding ground. That would not be good, because then you can weaken the area surrounding it and create sinkholes and so on. So that would not be so good. But you can also lose water in the pole, so you have to refill it all the time.
There was big challenges in achieving this, and I know that there was lots of rework by the contractor in order to get it right, but they got it right at the end of the day.
As this difficult stage was nearing its end, the initial request was modified. The client decided that the well needed to be deeper.
We achieved 45 meters at the time when we got to the base, and the decision was made by the client to push it again to 60 meters. There was a lot of open mouths. There was a lot of... all the engineers began to worry. It was a big challenge.
A diving pool of the same depth had just opened in Poland. To beat the record meant yet more digging to reach the depth of 197 feet deep. It was a real challenge that nobody had anticipated, one that required ingenuity.
That created all sorts of engineering challenges for Halcro.
Well, obviously, when you first kind of hear it, it's worrying. You kind of think, oh, they want us to, and we found out about it mid-construction. Had we been told about this before we started, not a problem. You just redo the design, and you start again. But we found this out, I think we were almost to the bottom of the hole, actually. So, yeah, it was a surprise, bit of a worry. There were, I suppose, a few sleepless nights trying to work out how we did that safely and, you know, and economically.
The most stressful aspect at this stage was deciding how to satisfy the client without endangering the teams working on the project and without weakening the construction that had already been built.
When we designed the original shaft, we have factors of safety. It's not right on the edge, so there was some flexibility to allow us to go the extra 10 meters, and it wasn't a major problem for us. The diaphragm wall was 10 meters below the original base anyway. So we can excavate down to the extra 10 meters. But then they wanted us to go another 10 meters. So then we're kind of 10 meters below the base of our diaphragm wall, yeah? So you're excavating and then putting in reinforcement, spraying with concrete, going a little bit further and you know, continuing that process meter by meter until you get down to the extra 10 meters below your original diaphragm wall construction.
This last stage of the operation required extending the excavation by a further 16 feet. But lengthening the concrete tube raised new challenges, particularly in the case of the ceiling. A connection needed to be made between what had already been built and the new part to be added.
The deeper you go, the higher pressure of the water in the surrounding environment, and you have essentially only ambient or surface pressure inside the dry space, and a little bit more, but not a lot more, whereas you have significant pressure all the way down at 60 meters of depth.
And then all the forces, you know, the Earth's trying to push that building out of the Earth, because that's naturally what happens. To anchor that building into the Earth is such a challenge for the engineers.
All that water pressure is coming up on the base, and it's trying to lift the shaft out of the ground. So you have to make sure that you've got enough weight and enough resistance to flotation to make sure that that doesn't happen. For the 50-meter depth, we were fine. We didn't really need to do much else. You have a large building on top of it, so you know it wasn't a concern for us. But the extra 10 meters, we actually had to kind of under-ream. So we excavated out into the ground and had like an under-ream that provided a little bit of extra resistance to uplift, so that we could add the extra 10-meter depth.
This last-minute modification could have jeopardized the outcome of the project at any moment. The operation was all the more delicate as it had to be carried out when construction of the main building at ground level had already begun. Not only did this complicate access to the work area, it meant care had to be taken not to damage the structure underway. In total, 45,000 tons of earth were excavated before workers reached the end of this crucial stage, allowing them to focus on the rest of the project, construction of the exterior.
The structure is a cast in situ concrete structure and steel introduced at high level to create the roof. Quite a simple structure, actually, traditional structure, if you like. The facade is, on the external envelope, is predominantly stone. There's some beautiful granite stone from Venezuela to the sides and the rear of the building. And obviously we've got the lovely sloped glass elevation, which opens up out onto the pool and the openable section of the pearl itself.
For the curve of the roof to faithfully reproduce the curved shape of a shell, while meeting requirements with regard both to stability and aesthetics, each component had to be shaped in a non-standard way. Both the tiles and the supporting metal structures are a work of craftsmanship.
It's quite unique in terms of a standard job where you have a beam that runs from A to B and it's level, you know what I mean, to build a flat roof. This particular roof, in order to achieve the shape of the shell, the structural beams underneath had to mimic that curvature. So every single beam that supports that roof is unique. Because there's so much movement on the roof, we've covered the roof in small triangles, but they're all jointed very, very closely together with enough movement for the thermal movement for the sun during the day and during the summers here. That's how we've achieved that lovely, clean, smooth, curved roof. And that was quite a challenge.
The desire to create the impression of a seashell was not limited to the exterior of the structure, a carefully thought-out reflective pearlescent finish was added to the interior. Extending the organic side of this concept inside the building called for some innovative techniques, notably in the construction of the walls.
The walls, as you walk around the pool, are curved and move like water movement. Those walls are 3D printed.
To provide luxurious finishes, the most refined materials were sought from all over the world, showcasing the finest of what each country has to offer.
Some of the materials used in the project are very unique. We have used a lot of Carrara stone from Forte dei Marmi in Italy. The Carrara is used on the pool deck, and it is also used on some of the stairs within the facility. We have also Macael stone within the water feature from Spain, and we have Bedonia from northern Italy, and we have Laza white stone from Thessaloniki in Greece. So a lot of the stones have been selected specifically for the project from various different parts of the world.
The whole host of elements concealed in the invisible part of the structure, deep in the earth beneath the United Arab Emirates, is what sets Deep Dive Dubai apart from other leisure centers. The creators wanted to offer an unmatched experience, to make the facility much more than just an entry in the Guinness Book of Records.
The pool in itself starts with a big auditorium, like an open square in a city, and that goes down all the way to 18 meters. So that's a 27 by 17 meter big square that you can recreate in, and you will see street signs, you will see cars, you will see lots of interesting things in this area. And many objects that you can interact with. We have a Harley Davidson motorbike, we have a Ducati, and so on.
Some of the props are not really contemporary. You're not seeing a phone booth anywhere in the world at now, but 30 years ago maybe you would see a phone booth. Or some of the props here looks a little bit old. They look a little bit like Manhattan in the 70s, if you will.
If you go deeper, this is where the shaft starts, and the shaft goes all the way from 18 meters and all the way down to 60. And the diameter is almost 11 meters of this shaft. So that's a big cylinder that goes straight down. But wouldn't that just be boring to dive a cylinder down to 60 meters? So we're not boring, so we created something else.
On 20 meters, we have an underwater habitat where divers can go inside and surface, so they can remove their breathing apparatus and talk. And they can even talk to the surface. And these environments provide safety, but it's also super fun to go inside. Sometimes halfway through the dive, it's really nice to go inside with your divers and kind of have a little bit of talk. So far, how do you think? Do you like it? Is there anything we need to fix before we continue? So it's just a luxury that we have these environments.
When you come down to 27 meters, you have two openings in this cylinder that allows you to swim out into what we call a donut. It goes around the shaft like this, and it's actually 360 meters if you swim like this. So it's a big area that you can actually swim in. And this is where you can enter the city. You enter apartments, you enter a kitchen, you enter a bedroom, other areas that are interesting. I don't want to spoil everything. And of course, all of these areas are outfitted as if nature claimed back this city and people just disappeared. That's the look and feel of it. If you go down to 40 meters, and now we're starting to enter the realm of technical diving, where you use helium-enriched gases to breathe off. You have the similar thing. It opens up into a big donut, and this is where you can find the man cave or female cave, you name it, the arcade room, the garage with the cars and motorbikes and other items. And then, of course, you can drop further down into 60 meters, and that's you will find a surprise that I will not reveal, because you have to dive down there as a diver to actually see what it is.
Almost 200 feet. Not a random figure, but one specified by international diving certifications. This is the official level for recreational divers, the designated limit of deep air diving, the invisible threshold beyond which training is required. But to be able to offer this experience, reserved for a small percentage of visitors, hundreds of professionals had to be mobilized, experts in a wide range of disciplines. The extension obviously slowed down the work. The need to fill the pool started to become a pressing matter, given the immense pressure on the cylinder at this depth from the surrounding water. It was a constant challenge for the whole duration of the work.
With, let's say, a pump station, as they have in Abu Dhabi, most of the shaft is permanently empty. Yeah, so you've got forces from the outside trying to push the shaft in.
The pressure for intrusion of water is quite significant. Really what you want to do ultimately is get the facility filled as quickly as you can, because then you create pressure inside that's equal or greater to the pressure outside.
With the dive pool, you've got water inside it, so the forces kind of equalize. The water that's in the pool actually helps to stabilize the structure.
Filling the pool initially lifted fears about the pressure on the walls. On the other hand, it brought new challenges, for which the teams were not always prepared.
When we started filling, it was mostly enthusiasm, of course, but then there's this low-level kind of anxiety. You know, did we think of everything, or the things that we didn't think of, are they going to cause big problems? What's going to happen when the pool is filled?
So the water is creeping up and you're holding your breath and hope for the best.
14,000 cubic meters. That's 3,700,000 gallons required to fill this gigantic swimming pool. The equivalent of 100,000 baths, another challenge that demanded creative thinking.
The story behind filling the pool is quite interesting. Like any project, we were behind the timeline, so it was enormous pressure to complete this facility and to fill up the pool and make it operational. How to fill up this pool, how is it done to begin with? So here in Dubai, we have something called DEWA, and that's Dubai Electricity and Water Agency, basically. And they supply the water, like in any facility, through water pipes. Of course, you can only get a certain amount of water per hour through those water pipes. This underwater world takes 14 million liters of water. So that would take 2.5 months to fill up the pool. But we were challenged to fill it up in 30 days.
There was only one way to speed up the operation: truck in more water.
We didn't use just the municipal supply, we also used some water trucks that were available to help fill.
I think we used almost 100 tank trucks coming in, plus the DEWA supplied water to fill it up. So for us, it was super exciting times to fill up the pool.
Unsurprisingly, the water was full of particles and dirt from years of work. Thorough filtration would be required to provide clear water accessible to divers.
We knew that we would have quite a lot of cycles of water cleaning because the pool had been into the open environment for a long period of time. So desert sand were involved, a lot of construction was involved. So when we filled, we knew that the water quality would be quite low for quite some time. And we'd need to run quite a lot of filtrations, a lot of cleaning cycles. So we weren't really sure how many weeks or months even it would take to get the water quality that we wanted. So we just wanted to get started. We were impatient after all that time.
But it wasn't just a matter of filling an empty pool. The concept of the sunken city would bring its own share of unexpected problems. It was difficult to anticipate how this underwater setting would react to being submerged. Once again, tensions were running high.
Nobody's really done that before. Of course, there are multiple different pools that have small thematic elements, but this one is really a thematic element with a pool. So really everything here was a little bit of an unknown for us.
Deep dive is unique because it's this underwater sunken city with paints and all of the surfaces and materials that you have in your home, in your city, and so on. Of course, many things were considered and perfected before we put water into the pool, but some of the issues and some of the problems that we experienced. Corrosion is usually done by outside factors, but galvanic corrosion is when you take one type of metal and put it right on top of another metal. So obviously, if that's made on purpose, fine. If it's not made on purpose, it's not so good. A concrete example of corrosion problems could be we have wet belts here underwater. Those wet belts to keep the acrylic windows in place. And to put those windows in place, we had big steel frames around them. Those steel frames was made out of galvanized steel. And since the water is almost as clean as distilled water, that created a battery effect. That speeded up corrosions that we had in the pool. So that was a big problem that we had. And that made some lights and cameras corrode away much quicker than they should be. And until we figured out that was caused by these frames, we lost a lot of time there also. But then we fixed that, we removed them and fixed them with normal stainless steel frames, and now the problem is gone.
Some accessories also suffered corrosion problems. This motorbike, for example, which was starting to rust, had to be brought back to the surface. To prevent the problem from reoccurring, certain elements have been replaced by reproductions made from less corrosive materials. But rusting wasn't the only problem. Another oversight came to light, which was the tendency of certain objects to float once submerged beneath water.
And then we had to catch that early on and dive down, and if it was a hair-filled space that had trapped air, we just had to drill holes and let the air escape, and then problem sorted. So many of the things we have underwater are specially prepared for being used underwater. If we take the pool, the billiards table and the pool balls and so on, we choose those ones that are made out of material that actually sinks. But again, when we go shopping for these things, sometimes we buy and then we find out that they float. Then we had to adjust them. Then we can drill a hole, put lead in it or something else that's heavy, and then seal them and make them look like the real thing, and then they work.
Likewise, the paint used for the graffiti and tags on the walls soon began to deteriorate. This led to another problem, as impurities began to seep into the water.
We have been forced to do a lot of house cleaning underwater also. You know how your home looks after 2-3 weeks without vacuuming? Just imagine the amount of vacuuming we had to do in this pool when the paint started to flake off. So problems like that, many of them.
Once all these problems had been resolved, Deep Dive Dubai began to welcome special guests by invitation. Although the official launch was scheduled for July 2021, some were able to enjoy a sneak preview of this top-secret project.
Sir, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Man, all this lovely. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me okay? Well,
Will Smith helped us a lot in the beginning because he actually launched Deep Dive Dubai. He did the first social media video for us.
A friend of mine told me I had to check out this pool. There's something weird about it.
And he is actually a good diver, so he was doing us a big favor of giving us that first push.
would you like to go a little deeper? Okay, go down.
Insane down there.
The particularity of Deep Dive Dubai is also the wealth of equipment on offer, particularly in terms of sound and lighting. 160 state-of-the-art spotlights, operational at depths of up to 1,300 feet, illuminate every corner of the pool and provide visibility even at night. 27 loudspeakers pumping out the sound of whale cries and all kinds of music create a wide range of ambiances, and divers can hear the communication system as clearly as if they were out of the water.
Obviously, the divers can't talk back, so I can say a lot of fun things and they can't come back at me. Another thing that we have is cameras, 56 of them. And we use the cameras to be able to survey, to see that you're doing all right, no, but to make sure that you're safe. So if you would have a problem in one area, the rescue diver will be able to locate the problem and assist you very quickly, and that's what the cameras are for.
standpoint, we like to believe that we are the safest diving destination in the world. We have a lot of layers of safety. Nobody's diving alone here. They are always diving with an instructor. We have safety divers on the pool deck. We have safety supervisors making sure that everything is running smoothly. We have a decompression chamber. So even in the very unlikely event that someone will suffer from decompression sickness after a dive here, we can treat them directly in our own chamber.
We've really tried to pick high-quality staff and then run them through regular training and retraining to ensure that they stay on par with the experience that we want to provide and the safety we want to offer.
Another essential safety feature is clean and healthy water. The major element of the infrastructure is fragile, affected by external factors such as light and temperature. Maintained at 85 degrees for optimal comfort, it must always be clear so that divers can make the most of the underwater landscape. For this, an innovative filtration system cleans the millions of gallons of water every 6 hours.
So we have a significant water filtration system, so municipal quality level. So we're returning the water every 6 hours. So all 14.5 million liters of water is moving through the pump room every 6 hours.
And we have copper, silver ionizers that takes away some of the problems we might have in the water, Legionella as an example. But we also have ozone generators that puts ozone into the water. Ozone is a very good disinfecting thing. Oxygen, as part of ozone, is actually quite aggressive. So that's a very good system also. And then we have UV reactors, huge ones, the biggest one in the region. And they actually knock off, they kill any kind of germs and so on that you might have in the water. And then as a fifth acid, we use bromine in the water, not chlorine, so you don't get green hair if you're diving here, and it doesn't smell like in a swimming pool. Bromine is much more expensive, but it will not sting your eyes, it will not make your hair green, and it doesn't smell.
This place of leisure now welcomes both beginners venturing into their first dive, as well as seasoned experts. And it is intended to be enjoyed by non-divers too.
We have, beginners that just want to have an experience, and even snorkelers that stays in the surface. Then we have the scuba divers that brings cylinders of compressed gas to breathe, and those also falls in different categories. We have the discover divers that has never dived before. We basically show them, so they get a little bit scared, especially when they put their head underwater the first time and they see this 60-meter abyss under them.
I've been very fortunate to do an amazing number of dives, everything from discovering sacrificial altars to exploring remote cave systems to finding rams and treasures and all kinds of amazing stuff. So I never imagined I could enjoy a dive in a pool, and I really do. Honestly and genuinely, I do enjoy diving here. It's still quite a very cool experience even after all of these dives.
But Deep Dive Dubai is more than a diving experience for individuals. And like the city of Dubai itself, the future possibilities are endless. The diving pool is frequently transformed into a Hollywood movie studio, the ideal backdrop for some exceptional scene settings. And for the enthusiasts at the helm, the next step is to make this place a real base for exploration and research.
We want to use Deep Dive Dubai as a platform for exploring that even further, so we can go out in the real environment and explore and protect the environment as well.
The next thing on the roadmap is to make Deep Dive Dubai a global concept, to expand outside this world, to go and explore areas in the world under the banner of Deep Dive Dubai, to make discoveries under the name of Deep Dive Dubai, to do science under the name of Deep Dive Dubai.
We're just getting started. We've started a number of these initiatives, from technological in nature to research in nature. So really, I think we're at the beginning.